Just when you thought 2020 couldn't get any more terrifying as the world goes into total lockdown thanks to one invisible killer, a new threat is already on the horizon. Murder hornets. That's right, a horrifying superbug is making its way overseas, and they don't get their name for nothing. Alright, somebody better stop playing that darn Jumanji board game, because this is all getting far too much. Let's find out more, shall we? From its huge head with bulging black eyes to its enormous black and orange striped abdomen, everything about this creature screams, you should probably run in the opposite direction. Before you decide to lock yourself indoors for the rest of your life, allow me to give you a formal introduction. The murder hornet, as it has been affectionately dubbed by the media, is scientifically known as the Vespa mandarinia, or Asian giant hornet. As the name suggests, these winged terrors are native to temperate and tropical East Asia, as well as South Asia, mainland Southeast Asia, Japan, and parts of the Russian Far East, where they normally live in forests and low mountain ranges. In case you couldn't already tell, they are also the largest hornets in the world. A single queen's body length can exceed 5 centimeters with a wingspan of 7.6 centimeters or more. For some more perspective, here's a murder hornet attacking a mouse. Seriously, check it out. Their life cycle begins in April when the queens emerge from hibernation, feed on plant sap and fruit, and look for underground dens to build their nests. A single queen can fly many miles a day at speeds of up to 20 miles per hour as she searches for the perfect place to create her army of homicidal followers. Okay, so they definitely look hella intimidating, but what makes these hornets so, murderous? Although hornets are generally solitary hunters, Vespa mandarinia are most destructive in late summer to fall when they develop a particular thirst for blood, specifically that of the world's Apis mellifera or honeybee population. When a murder hornet worker, which are always female, comes across a likely bee colony target, she places a pheromonal mark on it which basically says, "Hey sisters, come get a load of these goodies." Once the murder hornets get a whiff of the sweet smell of honeybee fear, they invade their hive and proceed to use their huge spiky mandibles to rip the bees' heads off by the thousands, leaving nothing but decapitated bodies in their wake. According to research from Washington State University, a strong, healthy, and populous bee colony of 30,000 to 50,000 workers can be slaughtered by a group of just 15 to 30 hornets within a few hours. Yikes. This villainous behavior has even been given a special name, the slaughter and occupation technique. Once they've wiped out the entire honeybee colony, the murder hornets zone in on their precious food bank. Any immature bees are left in their little waxen cells, which provide a great source of protein for their own young larvae. If that doesn't already sound enough like a horror movie plot to you, get this. Murder hornets might be heading your way sooner than you'd think. They may be native to Asia, but in December 2019, an alarming discovery was made in Washington state when an unsuspecting honeybee colony was mercilessly massacred by a specimen which was later identified as a bona fide murder hornet. That's not all though. Several of the insects had previously been seen on nearby Vancouver Island in British Columbia during late summer and fall 2019. While the first recorded case in the UK was way back in 2016 after some of the insects were accidentally introduced in France several years earlier. They've even cropped up in British Columbia and Canada, and there's no telling where they'll be found next. Whether these border-crossing murder hornets came from Japan, as some experts suggest, or from some other region, one thing's for sure, you do not want to get stung by one. Believe it or not, the murder hornet's venom is milligram for milligram less toxic than a standard honeybee's. But here's the catch. Because the hornet is much bigger, it packs a bigger punch, and it can sting you over and over again without dying. All in all, a single murder hornet can deliver 7 times as much venom as a standard honeybee, so don't be fooled by its apparent lack of potency. According to an article published by the New York Times, about 50 people in Japan, one of the places where the insects are most common, die each year as a result of murder hornet stings, mostly due to severe allergic reactions. Todd Murray, an entomologist from Washington State University, has also warned that if someone stumbles across a nest and you get stung by a few of these hornets, it can cause serious health concerns, especially if someone is allergic to these types of stings. Standard beekeeper suits aren't enough to protect you either, because their 2-centimeter long stingers are powerful enough to pierce right through it. In case you're wondering what it would feel like if you were stung by a murder hornet, just ask poor old Conrad Berube. a beekeeper and entomologist from Nanaimo, Canada. After being stuck through his protective gear while trying to protect his honeybee colony, Berube described the pain as like having red-hot thumbtacks driven into my flesh. So, besides the very real fear of accidentally peeing off one of these monster bugs, what is there to be so worried about? Well, if murder hornets do establish themselves in the US and set about eliminating honeybee colonies across the country, we'd find ourselves in a spot of real bother, to say the least. According to the US Department of Agriculture, pollinators like honeybees are responsible for 1 of every 3 bites of food taken in the US, while they also increase the nation's crop values each year by more than $15 billion. You probably aren't aware, but native honeybee colonies are already susceptible to many other threats. Among these are poisonous pesticides, parasites like varroa mites, which basically suck out the equivalent of a bee's liver, and more than 20 viral and other diseases. According to Scientific American, since 2012, beekeepers have seen annual losses in hives ranging from 29 to 45%, while the total number of colonies in the US plummeted from 6 million to just 2 million between 1947 and 2017. Basically, it's not easy being a bee, and having to face off against giant head-chomping hornets is just one more stress our honeybees don't need. It all looks pretty bleak for the humble honeybee, but do they actually stand a chance against the murder hornet? Well, the short answer is no. But there are other members of the Apis species capable of putting up a good fight. Asia is home to a handful of bee species, including Apis cerana japonica, the Japanese honeybee, which are also managed in some parts of the continent for pollination alongside their European relatives. What makes the Japanese honeybee more of a match for the murder hornet is a sneaky defense mechanism they've got hidden up their fuzzy little sleeves. Hot bee balls, which isn't at all what it sounds like, so get your minds out of the gutter. Once the Japanese honeybee notices the pheromonal scent marker left by the murder hornet as its call to arms, the whole hive hunker down and wait for their foe to enter the nest. Once their attacker wanders inside, all 400 workers immediately surround it, forming a big buzzing insect ball around it. While in this tight ball formation, each bee frantically beats its wings, which raises the temperature inside the ball to 45.9 degrees Celsius, as well as carbon dioxide levels, and eventually, the unbearable heat is enough to cook the hornet inside. The Japanese honeybees are well equipped to deal with the heat and can regulate it from the outside. Pretty badass, right? The thing is, European honeybees do not respond to the scent marker in the same way, nor do they create hot bee balls, which leaves them at the mercy of the murder hornets. Brandon Kingsley Hopkins from Washington State University has pointed out that the whole murder hornet invasion thing should be enough to show why countries should preserve genetic diversity in European honeybees. At least 29 subspecies of honeybees live in Eurasia and Northern Africa, but most bees are descended from the Italian subspecies, which is known for its gentleness, honey-making abilities, and unfortunately, lack of defense tactics against most of the problems capable of thwarting their colonies. Although diversifying honeybee genetics is not as simple as it sounds, there are other less advanced methods of possible defense against the murder hornets. For one, beekeepers can install specialized entrance traps over the doorways of managed hives with holes that are large enough for a honeybee to enter through, but not a hornet. Jeff Pettis, a former researcher at the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Bee Lab in Beltsville, Maryland, has even noted that because labor is often cheap, some Asian beekeepers rely on mechanical means or even simple tennis rackets to swat the huge hornets away. In Tokyo, though, you might find that murder hornets are more likely to turn up on your dinner plate than in your nightmares, thanks to their surprising culinary reputation. That's right, people actually eat these things. Long before the terrifying insects made their way to American shores, some Japanese foodies prized them for their robust snack-like crunch and the way they could invigorate liquor and other drinks with a literal buzz. I guess that's one way we could tackle the problem. One very cautious bite at a time, right? But let me level with you for a second. Swaths of giant murderous hornets are not about to suddenly take over every neighborhood in the US. But that doesn't mean the threat they pose to native honeybee populations isn't still very real. Washington State University researchers are already working with the Washington Department of Agriculture, beekeepers, and local residents to help locate the threat, study it, and curb its spread before it truly is too late. WSU has also ordered specialized reformed suits from China to protect beekeepers in their battle against Vespa mandarinia. If experts can't, at the very least, squash the invasion, quite literally, then wild honeybees and other social insects, including totally defenseless bumblebees, will be left at the mercy of this fearsome predator. According to Chris Looney, an entomologist at the Washington State Department of Agriculture, this is our window to keep them from establishing. If we can't do it in the next couple of years, it probably can't be done. All that's left to do is prepare for a war against these terrifying creatures. And as bee breeder Sue Cobry says, it will be ugly. At this point, it really feels like we're playing one big game of apocalypse bingo. First a global pandemic, now a murder hornet invasion? What's next? What do you make of this new threat? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.